Hey, it's Brendan back with Alley Cat Mallet Co. And today we're going to learn how to make our very first marimba mallet, all with simple materials that we can find at Walmart, just so you can learn the process and develop some of those skills before you spend real money on working on some advanced mallets and ones that sound better. So first, we're just going to go through and talk about all the materials we're going to need today. So we're going to need a dowel. This is a 5/16 dowel. I got it right from Walmart. The ones with the yellow dot on the end, those are 5/16. You can also look right on the sticker there. And we're going to use this to cut it down. So you're also going to want a saw or some sort of hand blade to cut it down to the appropriate length. You're going to need your different types of cores. I have a couple examples here, and I'm going to show you how to do that. If you want to put some rubber around the core to make it a little bit softer, we can use some rubber bands. Later on, when we're getting to the more advanced mallets, we're going to want to use something more specific, and we'll have an even sound around. But as we get to those advanced mallets, we'll be able to do that. For today, this is fine. We're going to have our hot glue gun. Again, same. There's going to be specific glue that we want to use depending on what kind of core we use for the more advanced ones. But today, hot glue is just fine. We have our sandpaper. Over here, I have our 80 grit sandpaper and our finishing off sandpaper, which is about 320. And then lastly, we have our yarn. This is just a weight 3 yarn. Picked it up at Walmart. A couple dollars for what we need to do today. It's perfectly fine. So when you have all your materials, we're ready to get started. Hey, one thing that I forgot with all the materials that you're looking for is for the ending steps, you're going to want a needle and something to cut some thread. And then I like to grab a pair of pliers because sometimes the needle is really hard to get through when you're sewing in the crown. You'll notice I just realized I forgot these and we're about to sew it in. So I will see you when you get to that point in the video, but don't forget that you're gonna need those materials before you start too. So now that we have all of the materials that we need for today, we're gonna start off with the first step, which is going to be preparing the shaft of the mallet. As you can see, like I talked about earlier, this is way too long for a mallet. So I went in and marked 16 inches from each end is about the same length as a standard marimba mallet. So I went ahead and marked those on there, and then we're gonna cut them. I pre-cut this beforehand, so here's from a different dowel. These are both 16 inches. You can see they're about the same here. And once you get them cut down to size, the next step is sanding. So what you wanna do is you're gonna start with your 80 grit just to start it off. And I just like to wrap it around there and sand it a bit and go all the way around. What you're doing here is just preparing the wood to be sanded with the smaller ones and getting out any imperfections. And it's going to make it a lot more comfortable to hold. If you tried to play on a marimba mallet that was just this wood, it would be really uncomfortable. So I'm going to go through and sand the ends of all of this. And then I'm going to pick an end, and what I'm going to do is sand the end of it right on a table there. And then sand around the corners. And the goal with this is I'm trying to smooth it around so it's a nice smooth finish and a curved bottom so that when we're holding it in our hand, it doesn't bother us. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that with the 60 grit, and then once I have it where I want, I'm gonna go through and finish it off with the 320 grit to smooth it off so I can hold, and then we'll get ready for the next step. Okay, so now that I've gotten this sanded down, the next step is going to be attaching the core. I'm going to use one of these plastic cores for now. I have a couple different ones. I have these plastic heads that I 3D printed, or if you go to Walmart and get some bungee tarps, these are the ends to it, and you can cut the string off and then put the stick in and glue it in like that. So sometimes your dowel is going to be a little bit too thick to fit into the hole, so I just sand it down or carve it off a little bit with a knife so that it fits. So once you got it on, you're going to put your hot glue onto the end of the stick, just a little bit there on the sides, and I just put it at the top there, because then when I go and stick it into the mallet head, the glue will go along the rest of the stick as it pushes in. So once you get that in, you're going to want to get it in as far as tight as you can so that it's flush with the top hole. And then you'll set it down and wait for it to dry. You can go ahead and do that to your other mallet while you're waiting. So while we're waiting for that to dry, we'll get ready for the next step. So now that our glue is dried, we have a couple of options. For now, I'm just going to leave mine as just the plastic tip because I'm looking to have a hard mallet. Our other option is if you get some rubber bands, you can put them on and just twist them around and get them to stay on there like that. The thicker your rubber bands, the better. But you can put them around there, and if you were to actually do it, you'll probably put a couple more than just one, but that was just an example of how to put them on there. And you'll put those on there, and then we're gonna go ahead and get the string ready. So we're gonna take the yarn that we're looking for, and we're gonna wrap it around, and like it's like the first step of tying a shoe. We're just gonna loop it around, loop it in, and tighten it, and we're gonna have a little left hanging there on the side, but that's okay. We'll push it right up to where we put in that hot glue that's dried now, and we'll wait for the next step. So now we're ready to start wrapping the mallet. If at all possible, go ahead, get a pair of gloves. All it does is helps keep the yarn's integrity. Your hands are gonna have greases and oils on them, like everybody's does. And if you're using it with your bare hands, you have the opportunity to get some of that oils on the string. So what we're gonna do is first I'm gonna start off like this and show you guys. So the basic idea is we're gonna take the yarn in front of us. We're gonna wrap it up and around, all the way back over till it's facing us. We're gonna shift it a little bit, and then up and around all the way to us, shift it a little bit, bring it around, back to us, shift it a little bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna come over to the other side of the camera here so you guys can kind of get my POV of what is happening. So this is what we're looking at here. So I have the yarn and it's in front of me. Now you wanna look at it like a clock face. So right now, if this was a clock, I would be about 5 o'clock down here. So I'm gonna bring this string up over to 11 o'clock on the top, just on the other side of that hole, and bring it all the way around and back to 5 o'clock over here. Then I'm gonna take this mallet, shift it over a little bit, starting at 5 o'clock, up around to where 11 o'clock would be, and then back to 5 o'clock. Shift it around, up to 5 and over, and we're just gonna keep going like that around. Now, if this video doesn't make sense, there are plenty online that you can go ahead and follow. It's something that you really just wanna do it and keep trying, and eventually you'll start to understand it and it'll make sense. So we're gonna go around and continue to do that on the entire mallet. One thing we wanna keep in mind, at the top here, we have this hole, and we wanna keep that open. We don't wanna go over the middle of the mallet because we wanna keep that open so that later on we can sew the crown. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish wrapping this mallet and then get it ready so that we can sew it in and have it stay. Okay, so I've gone ahead and wrapped this entire mallet. You can see I still have room for the crown, and I have a nice around here. A nice wrap around here. You can't see any of the core. What you're gonna wanna do is ideally be in front of a marimba, and once you get it wrapped to however much you think, you're gonna just take it and wrap the excess around the shaft here. Then you're gonna go and play it on a marimba. I like to play a scale all the way up to see if it's the right tone and timbre that I want. If I need it harder, I'm gonna take some yarn off. If I need it softer, I'm gonna put some more on. And then when you're making the second one, you're gonna wanna have both of them handy so that when you're wrapping the second one, you can just make sure that it sounds even to this first one. So once you have it to the desired sound that you're looking for, go ahead and wrap it all the way up the shaft. And then we're gonna go get our sewing needles, which I forgot to say in the beginning, but once you have your sewing needles, you're ready for the next step. So now that our yarn is at the desired sound that we're looking for, you can go ahead. I just took a knife here and cut off the end of the string. And then I didn't show this on camera because sometimes it takes forever, but I put the yarn into the needle. So I'm gonna bring it all the way back to the top, making sure I hold where my last wrap was. And I'm just gonna bring it around to the top. And what we're doing here is we're gonna sew around the top from the inside of the crown so that it doesn't fall apart. So I'm gonna start by putting my needle into the middle of the hole, sticking it through the side. This is where I was saying we might need the pliers. Stick it through the side, and then pull it through and pull it tight. And then we're gonna spin it a little bit, go through a spot in the hole right next to it, and then do it again. And we're gonna do that until we go all the way around. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and once I'm done, I'm gonna show you what the next step is. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone through and put it around the top there. So once you do all the way around the top, we're gonna bring the string back down to the bottom. It's easiest to start with our hands. We're gonna wrap it back down to the bottom, and then we're gonna go from the inside of the wood. We're gonna start along the wood and stick it out the side like that, if you can see that. And then pull it through, and then go to the next spot and do that too. And all this is doing is preventing the yarn from falling off the ends. So we're gonna go And kind of like we did on the top, go through and do the same thing all the way around the bottom. So I'll see you when we finish this step. Okay, so now I've gone all the way through and around the bottom there, holding that in. So for the final step, I'm gonna bring it back around to the top, and I just like to stick it back into the original hole, stick it at the side, and then go in just about where that hole came from, stick it back through and out the middle. And then once I have it coming out of the middle like that, I'm gonna take my knife and cut it. And now you see we have a nice clean exit there. If you have any extra, you can just stick it inside the mallet. And then our mallet is done. So now that our mallet is done, I just wanted to talk about a couple things. So obviously, this is a really hard mallet, and this is not gonna be a mallet that's gonna be the best sounding one in your bag by far. The whole reason I believe in doing this is because I believe that it takes a lot of skill and a lot of time and understanding to get to the point where you're good at wrapping it. And I would rather spend $1 or 50 cents on a couple of these, and 30 cents on a cheap dowel, and a couple bucks on a thing of yarn to practice on before later on when we make the advanced ones, we're spending a little bit more money on better parts for specific things. This is a perfect way just to start. And if you ever want to teach your students, this is a perfect way to have them start too, because you can buy a box of these and one thing of yarn and you'll be set for a while. The other option for practicing restraining, if you have any old mallets that have completely fallen apart, that's another good way to do it too. So yes, I understand this is not going to be the greatest sounding mallet, so don't come at me for it. It's just an educational tool to get us started. I'm going to have a lot more videos like these and a book that goes along with it. So I hope that all of you guys find this useful and that I can help make a difference in helping percussion sections in high schools and colleges get the equipment that they need without having to buy new stuff every time, because it can be very expensive. So thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day.